Schlaf mein Fegerle, mach zu dein Nägerle, schlaf mein Kind, schlaf.
My name is Joe Brandman. I was born January 9, 1918 in the capital of Latvia, which is Riga. I went to school in a Hebrew gymnasium by the name of Tushia. I started to learn to be a barber at the age of 15.
14.
And now I'm going to tell you when this war started. The war started the 22nd of June 1941. The German Air Force bombed Riga for a couple days and nights. After they were through bombing, the infantry and the tanks rolled into Riga. And at the same time, the special called Satzgruppe, the SS, they came in too. The SS were a branch of the army that they should take care of the Jews. Now the first thing they said is they put up an order that all the Jews, small, young and old, has to register to get ration cards, to get food. The second order was all the Jews has to wear a yellow patch with the Star of David in front and in back of their clothes, so people can notice who is a Jew. The third order was all the Jews cannot walk no more on the sidewalk. They can only walk on the gutter of the streets. So naturally nobody went for a walk, but just we went to get our rations. This went on for a while, and the order was, who don't obey the orders is punishable by death. This went on for about a month or 6 weeks. And then they told us that we have to move to the ghetto. They fixed up at the ghetto with barbed wires and with the gate, and all the Jews has to move into the ghetto behind the barbed wires. From there, they used to take us to work, all kind of hard labor work. This went on for a couple months, and finally, December 8, 1941, till the December 10th, they took an action which they took out 30,000 Jews plus, and they told us that they taken them to a resettlement. But actually, they took them to Bikanike woods, and they killed them all. And under the 30,000 plus was my mother, my wife, my 2 sisters, my 4 sister-in-laws, my nephews, my nieces, my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, all got killed. That was one chapter. Now they looked around and they are short of workers. So decided they'll bring in some different Jews to work for Riga. They brought in German Jews, and they brought in from Lithuania 500 people to work. And under the 500 people was my future wife, Mira Melnik. In Europe, my wife's name was Mira, but in the States she changed and it became Myra. Now, my brother-in-law and myself, they assigned us to dig big graves, not for people, but for the trash and for rubbish. Now we worked quite hard because just by hand with a shovel, no machinery. Then they decided that they need wood choppers. So they assigned my brother-in-law and myself to chop woods for the SS. The SS was outside the camp, naturally. We have to have a guard that took us to them to saw the woods and to chop the woods for them. To walk was a long way to walk. So we took and we hijacked with another group that had a truck. And that group was my wife, Myra. And I became acquainted with her and I liked her very much. And we became friends. And so we went on for quite a while. Meantime, in ghetto, the rest of the Jews that remained, that we were able to work, they decided they're going to resist the Germans. They tried to smuggle in Waffen from the outside through the barbed wire. We had 42 Jewish policemen. They took care of the rest of the Jews. But somehow the SS got notice that we are planning a resistance. And they took the 42 Jewish policemen, young brave boys, they took them to the cemetery and they killed them all. No more policemen Jews. And that was the end of the resistance. This went on for another year. We worked, and at the same time we became friends, Myra and myself. And finally, they took us, put together a big colony for Jews, and they sent us away to work in another place by the name of Dondon. This is also in Latvia. Over there the camp was a death camp. It was a muddy place, a big camp, but muddy, no barracks. We slept in tents, big tents. No beds. We slept on branches from the trees that we used to cut up. It was not a pleasant place to be. And they sent us to work in the woods, where we have to cut trees and cut up in pieces and carry us to a buggy and horse that they take it out of the woods. And also there were a lot of stones, so we had to take the stones from one place and put it in another place, and by reverse. I worked in the woods for 2 days. On the third day, they assigned me, I should clean the windows in the soldiers' barracks. So the windows was very high, I needed a step ladder. The windows were so high that you can't look in or look out. With on the step ladder, I hardly can reach the windows. Pardon me. As I was cleaning the windows, a soldier came through to the barracks. The barracks was, for both ends were doors, so you get through. The soldier dropped his cigarette butt, and as I saw it, I went down from my stepladder and I picked up the butt and I inhaled a couple puffs. I was so excited that I didn't see how the commandant of the camp came also through the barracks. And he stopped in front of me. He was a very mean man. He used to hit everybody with a horsewhip. At this time he didn't have the horsewhip, but he came close to me, in front of me. He pulled out his gun and he said, "You smoke? I'm gonna kill you." And he started to holler high under his voice, I'm going to kill you, you dirty Jew, and he cursed me and killed and hollered. I said, Herr Commandant, I says, the way it happened, that a soldier went by and he dropped a cigarette butt. So I picked it up and I inhaled 2 puffs. No, he says, you shouldn't have done it. I'm going to kill you. And he had his gun was in front of my face. He was wiggling like a like a fan in front of my face. No, you must die. I'm going to kill you for smoking. Then I noticed that he didn't shave for a couple of days. I says, Herr Commandant, I see you have a tough beard. I'll shave you and you'll feel much better. I'm a good barber. He says, high on the voice, aha, you want to cut my throat? I says, Herr Commandant, if I nick you a little bit, then you can kill me. So I took the gun back and put it in his holster. And in a normal voice, he says to me, come with me. He took me to his cabin, which was outside the barbed wire next to the gate, and I shaved him there. Oh, this is terrible. I shaved him very, very slowly, not to nick him. When it was finished, he got up from the chair and with his hands he filled his face and he says, very good. From now on, he says, you don't have to work no more in the woods. You'll work for me. I'll tell you what you have to do and you'll be my servant. You'll clean the cabin, you'll take care of my clothes, you'll shine my shoes, you'll make fire in the morning in the wooden stove, so when I come to work, it should be warm. I said, jawohl, Herr Commandant, and I started to clean the cabin. The cabin wasn't a big one. There was no place for a bed. So there were just a table, a couple chairs, a wooden closet, and a little bureau, so where you can sit down and write something if you need to. Now, this was pretty good for me, and this was going on for a couple of weeks. At the same time also, he took me to cut hair to his fellow officers. In return, they used to give me a piece of bread, a little margarine, sometimes a little jelly or a piece of cheese. And I also used to cut the hair of the guards. They used to give me also a piece of bread and sometimes margarine and jelly. This way I could help help myself and I helped my brother. My brother was with me in that camp. He was working in the woods, but he was a healthy young man. Finally, the Russians moved closer at the front to the Baltic states, so they decided to close the camp and take us to Germany, to the big concentration camp, which is called Stutthof. But before they took us, we had to walk for a couple of days to get to a railroad station. On the way, my brother and I, we started to talk, maybe we should escape. We shouldn't stay there. As we were walking the couple of days, my brother and I, we talked it over that maybe we should escape. So we decided we're going to escape and wait for the Russian army to liberate us. So we decided, my brother says, I'll go first in the woods and then you come after me. We had gold pieces with us. The gold pieces we got when we were in the ghetto, when we used to dig the big graves for the trash and rubbish, we found something into what was buried. With a lot of Jews, they buried their goods, so when they come back after the war, they'll find it. But we found a little box, Nivea cream, a container. It was quite heavy, and when we opened up, we saw the gold pieces inside. So we took it home, in the kettle naturally, and we split it up. We counted it first. It was 70 gold pieces. And we divided it between the 4 brothers and the brother-in-law. Each got 14 pieces. So we still have it. Some of the pieces we gave away to the Aryans so they can bring us some food. But right now we're talking about running away. So my brother-in-law said, okay, we'll give the guard a couple pieces and he'll let us go into the woods. And that's what he says, that's what we did. As he went into the woods, and for a little while, Mira and myself, we slowed down our walk so we can come closer to the back of the colony. When we came at the end, I gave the guards 2 pieces of the gold pieces, and he let us go into the woods. As we walked into the woods, I started to call my brother's name. Paul, Paul, where are you? No answer. Paul, Paul, no answer. I started to call him high up as I could. No answer whatsoever. All of a sudden I turned and I see 3 men dressed in black. Standing on the side, and they didn't say a word to us. They just mentioned with their hands we should walk out of the woods, go out of the woods. But I still called a couple times my brother's name and no answer. I said to Mira, we cannot stay by ourselves in the woods, we'll have to go back to the colony. So we started to run back to the colony because they were already way ahead of us. While we were in the woods, they were walking. But we were running and we caught up with the colony, and they brought us to the railroad station and they took us to Germany. In cattle cars, naturally.
Grandpa,
Yes.
who do you think that those people were that were motioning to you in the woods?
Yes, if I would be a religious man, I would say there were not 3 peoples, there were 3 angels. They were the way they were motioning to us, we should get out of the woods, not to stay in the woods, get out of the woods. But they didn't talk, not one syllable. So now we are coming back at night, we're coming back to Stuttgart, to the main concentration camp for that region. It was dark. They separated right away at the gate, men separate and women separate with a barbed wire, divided by a barbed wire. I saw the first barrack and I was tired and disgusted that I lost my brother. I don't know what happened to him. And I went into the barrack and then lay down on the floor in the corner and I fell asleep. After I found out that the SS, they caught my brother and his girlfriend, and he had to dig out his own grave, and they killed them both right there in the woods. So now, as I was sleeping, the morning, big noises, aus, raus, raus, aus, uphill, the Germans. So everybody went outside, naturally. I was half asleep. I slowly got up and I got outside from the barrack and I look around and I'm staying in between lots of children. I would say 60 or 70 children, maybe even more. I couldn't count them. Anyway, the assessment looked at me and he says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "I came last night from Dundang. I didn't finish my sentence." And he says, "Rose, out, go outside and go to the next barrack." And finally I found out that they told the children after that they have to take a shower. And they took them to take a shower, but actually it wasn't a shower, it was the gas chamber. And they killed them, all the children. And myself and the other group that I were assigned, they sent us to another branch by the name of Stolp. And then a couple days later, they closed the whole camp and they took us back to Stolp because the Allied forces came closer to the Stutthof. When we came to Stutthof, Stutthof was in progress to liquidate the whole camp. They put us on 2 barges. You know what a barge is? A barge is a wooden, like a wooden containers, a big ship's wooden container that it has no motors. They used to transport dry goods, produce from one place to another. A little tugboat used to pull it. I was on one ship and Myra was on the second ship. And they pulled us out to sea. And on the sea, they pulled us for about 8 or 10 days. No food, no water. It was hot, it was already close to the end of April in 45. I was a bad boy, I couldn't stand it. I was so thirsty always that I drank the water from the sea. The seawater was terribly salty, but I didn't mind. I drank it and I got sick of it. But anyway, after 8 days or so, we came upon a big ship by the name of Capricorn. They tied us up to this big ship, which was not too far from a shoreline. And the guards and the tugboat, they disappeared. On our ships, they were not only Jews, because there was other nationalities too. Political prisoners that the German government put in concentration camp. There was Polacks, there was Romanian, Hungarian, Norwegian. Norwegian was the best boys. They should live long. They helped us. When they saw that the guards and the tugboat disappeared, they untied our barges from the big ship and they let it glide closer to the shore because we were not too far from the shore. They ripped up the top from the barges, which was boards or doors, and they threw it in the water. Then they told us we should jump in the water and hold on to the wood to get closer to the shore. And that's what we did. I was very sick, but the eldest of the Jews, Kacharik, he helped me jump down into the water and we get to the shore. And as we started to run toward the city, all of a sudden the SS came back with machine guns and they started to shoot everybody who is in the water. A lot of people were in the water. The water close to the shore became red instead of the normal water color from the blood that they killed up so many people. And we were running closer to the city. When we came closer to the city, there was a big sign, U-boat Schule, which means underwater ship, underwater U-boat school. It was a big camp, but the camp was completely empty, no German soldier, nothing. And at the same time the SS came and they tried to push everybody back to the big ship. But I didn't move because I was very sick. Meira, she was smart. She didn't go to the front, but she went backwards, not to go on the ship. And all of a sudden we hear big noises. It was early in the morning. Tanks rolled into the camp. British army came in and they stopped at the first tank stopped at the totem pole and they took down the German flag, the Nazi flag. They put up the British flag. And at the same time the Germans still were able to blow up the big ship Capricorn with 7,000 people. They killed them all. And the commandant, the British commandant, through the loudspeaker to the bullhorn, said, "You are now free. You don't have to be afraid of the Germans. You can go to the city and the stores are going to be open and the warehouses are going to be open. Take food, whatever you want, whatever you like, but come back to here to the camp." Mira was one, she went to the city with the rest of the people. I stood there, I was numb. I couldn't even walk. I fell down, I collapsed, and I lay down on the grass. It was a rainy morning, very rainy. But who cares about the rain? I was laying there in the rain, next to the tank. I still can remember that the soldiers picked me up. They put me on the truck and they sprayed me white powder all over my body to kill the lice that I have. Everybody had lice. And lice we had plenty. Big ones, fat ones, whatever. And furthermore, since they finished spraying me, I don't remember nothing for the next 6 weeks. They took me to the hospital where I was laying with high temperature for 6 weeks. Like in a coma. And they told me that afterwards, when I got better, that they used to come buses and take people wherever they want to go to back to their homeland, to Romania, Hungary, Poland, Latvia, wherever they want to go. But I didn't know about it. I was in a trance. I got rid of it after I got rid of my temperature. When I got rid of the temperature after 6 weeks, my friend Willy Frumavan, he used to come to see me once in a while. I said to him, "Tell Mira to come and see me." He says, "I told her already, but she doesn't want to come because she found out you have another girlfriend." I says, "Forget about the girlfriend, tell her to come." So I talked her in afterwards and she came to see me. She says to me, after a while talk, "I've gone back to the Soviet Union to look for my parents." Now here I have to stop for a second to go back before the war in 1940. In 1940, the Soviet Union occupied the Baltic states. And as soon as they come into the Riga, they took all, they took all the rich people and they sent them to Siberia. They took also Mira's parents and they sent them to Siberia because Mira's parents, they had a tin factory and they were rich. That's why they sent them to Siberia. They didn't take Mira because Mira was married and her name was Pilina. And her sister's name, she was married too, her name was Schwartz. So both sisters stayed on in Kaunas. But the parents, they took away to Siberia. So now Mira says she wants to go to Siberia to look for her parents. I started to talk to her, I says, "Don't go. You know it's tough to live there. It's a bad life. Stay with me, we'll go to America and we'll have a better life. Oh, I talked her in. I said, in the Soviet Union you have to stay in the big lines to get a loaf of bread. Stay with me, we'll go together to America. She decided, okay, I'll stay with you. As soon as she said that, I went out of the bed and I put on my clothes, which is next to my bed on the chair, and we left the hospital without telling anybody that I'm going to leave. I could hardly walk, but I held down on Mira, and she took me back to the camp where we were liberated. There were lots of big blocks, not wooden barracks, but from brick, built very nice ones. And she took me to the block number 3, where she stayed with 2 girls, with 2 sisters, with whom she was in Stutthof. Now they live now in Israel. We still got letters from there. Now when I came into the room was very big. And after all, I'm a man. So we split up the room in half with wooden closets. One half for the 2 sisters and one half for Mira and myself. And she nursed me till I got completely back to my house. And she started to talk to me. We have to get married. I says, why? We are married, you have my name. She says, no, no, no. If you want to have children, we have to be married officially. So I let her talk to him, can you imagine? Now I suffered 62 years. And we went and we got married in the city. And then we waited to go to America. We found through the Red Cross and through the Jewish newspaper forwards, we found relatives in the Bronx. And also I found one of my brothers. He was he was liberated. He was in another camp. He was liberated in Austria, in Salzburg. So we wrote him letters, come to us, we'll go together to America. He wrote us back, no, he cannot come. He's going back to the Soviet Union because he heard that his wife is still alive and she's in Riga. So he went to Riga. By the time he came to Riga, his wife died. Now he wanted to go out of the Soviet Union, back to us, to the West. At the border, the guard caught him and they sentenced him to 15 years in Siberia. So he was sent to Siberia. So the first time we got permission to see him was in 1988. After 45 years I didn't see him. That was quite a reunion. And he lived, he married over there naturally, and he stayed in Latvia. And we went there in 1988, and in 1989, a year later, we went again to see my brother. We got permission to stay in Moscow for 3 days, in Leningrad 3 days, and 7 days in Riga, where we met my brother. In 1989, we were still there, and a year later, my brother died. And we were still, after the liberation, we were still in the displaced person camp for 4 years. Could you believe that? After 4 years concentration camp, another 4 years in a displaced person camp, until they let us come to the United States. We came at the we left Germany May the 9th, 1949, and we came Boston Harbor May the 18th, 1949. And at the shores, we were greeted by people from Hayas and from the UNRWA and from the Joint. They took us and they put us on a train that went to Albany, New York, because we had our papers for Albany, to Myra's uncle. And that's how we came to the United States.
Do you remember the name of the ship?
Pardon?
Do you remember the name of the ship?
Sure. General SS Hose. What a question do I remember?
Grandpa, how much would you say that you weighed when you were liberated from the camp?
Don't bet you're gonna laugh. I don't remember how much, but when the children were born and we were here in America, we had our friends. One of my friends is in Israel now. I talked to him on the phone once in a while. He used to grab my arm and says, "No schmaltz." So Frida became mad. She says to him, "What do you mean my father has no schmaltz? He has schmaltz." She didn't know what it is. She was a baby. But she got mad of him when he said, "No schmaltz, no fat." I was very skinny. The color of my shirts was 14. I remember that. And the slacks was 32, I think. I was like a herring, that skinny.
And Grandpa, of your family who was alive before the war, who survived?
Could survive?
Who survived the war of your family?
One by the name of Harry. When the war started, he was living not far from the border, the Russian border. So he went over the border and he stayed in Russia. But he was in the Russian army. He was very...
He was wounded.
He was wounded, terrible wounded, and in 1975 he died. He was 62 years old when he died from the wounds.
And then your other brother, Wolf, was it?
Wolf was the one we went to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul is the one who they killed in Dundang. He has to dig his own grave.
And Sam?
Sam, he stayed, he went with the 30,000 plus because he was a little handicapped. One leg was a little shorter. So he stayed with the rest of the people that they took it out and they killed in Bikanika woods.
Did you have any other brothers?
I had other brother. The last brother was, but he died 1940. He was 15 years old.
How old are you now?
Right now?
Yeah,
90.
90 years old.